Coming as I do from a research-based organisation, I do have a tendency to see the world in terms of a series of questions and answers. So for my 10 minutes today, I thought I'd do a bit of a self-interview. These are all the rage in the news media these days. You know, the sort of thing. Where am I standing in Red Square? Why am I here? Etc., etc. I mean, I guess it's good, cost-effective TV. So that's the approach I'm going to take. So first of all, why am I here at this event and in the industry section? Well, as a charity, IGD's mission is to help deliver a secure and sustainable future. But we do this by working through companies, and it is companies that provides our funding. So whereas I am definitely not a spokesman for industry, I do have a pretty good view of what makes industry tick. So I guess for the purposes of today, I'm one of those industry blogs. Thank you for that, Tim. We do have an industry group on sustainable diets. It includes many famous name companies, and we published some consumer research on this topic a year ago. We also conduct shopper research every day of the year, which we publish through our Shopper Vista service, and I'll quote from that today. So the next question was one that Tim had thrown at me. From where we sit, does it feel as if the public is losing interest in sustainability? Well, the vast majority of people want to leave things in good shape for future generations. And in that sense, that's never going to change. It's always going to be a major priority. People get the central concept of sustainability. However, what does vary is where that sits in people's list of priorities, how urgent they feel this is, and how much they're personally prepared to do about that. Now, these are not things that we track through our research, but we do look very closely at people's interest in food ethics, which I think is quite a good proxy for those sort of things. And what we found is there was a really steady increase in interest in food ethics up to the point of the credit crunch. And then after that, it leveled out. So the economy clearly has made a difference here, but it hasn't caused us to retrace. It's just stalled the momentum. I mean, people don't abandon their moral compass suddenly overnight. But we probably do need something new now to re-engender the sort of momentum that we did have a decade ago. Next question, following on from that, how receptive are people to the concept of sustainable diets, theme of today? Well, most people are prepared to do their bit towards sustainability in the right conditions. So first of all, they need to understand why there's a need to act. Secondly, they need to understand how they can make a difference. And thirdly, let's face it, the sacrifice shouldn't feel too painful, at least not all of a sudden. And we have, if we look back over the last decade, we've seen some real areas of progress. I mean, RAP has led the way on this, but we've seen some substantial reductions in food waste. We've also seen a heightened increase in buying local, and quite a resurgence, actually, in local food economies in much of the country. And parallel with this, we've also seen substantial growth in fair trade. What's more, 71% of the population agree that we shouldn't be running down fish stocks, even if that restricts our current choice. And 75% say that they would like to be inspired to make healthier and more sustainable food choices. So all of that is positive. However, if we come back to sustainable diets, and if we're asking people to make really substantial shifts in their diet, then I'm afraid that will currently fail my 3 tests. First of all, the need hasn't really been explained to the majority of people. Secondly, they wouldn't really know how they could make a major contribution. only 21% of people feel that they can have any impact on climate change through their food shopping choices. And finally, if it was all explained to people, and it does depend on exactly how hard line that was explained, a lot of people would feel it was too big and sudden a sacrifice to make. However, on a more positive note, in the bullseye area, where healthy eating and sustainability do completely coincide, then I think there's no reason whatsoever not to reinforce one message with the other. That would only build further momentum. Okay, so that's a view of the public. How about the industry? Is it losing interest in sustainability? Well, every year, IGD holds a big industry convention. We attract around 700 senior people from across the sector to that event. And one of the things we do is put questions to the audience that they answer through electronic voting pads. So they do it anonymously, and it's a good way of finding out what they really feel about topics. And one thing we regularly ask is their view and their company's view on sustainability. The last time we did this was last year, just over a year ago. And the results from that were 9% of people said that sustainability has never been a priority for their company. 5% say that they've had to put it on the back burner whilst they've focused on other issues. 48% said it's a steady commitment from one year to the next. And 38% said that it gets more attention with every passing year. So no sign of any backtracking there. And after all, when you think about it, any responsible senior manager will want their company to endure into the future. And just as we, as a group, would recognise a whole variety of threats to food security, these are well appreciated by senior people within the food industry as well. Incidentally, last year we came up with 19 different categories of possible threat to food security. Lots of information on this on our website. And it's important to recognise that even the biggest company can't fight on 19 different fronts at once. They do have to prioritise, they do have to pick and choose. And we also have to remember one of the 3 pillars of sustainability is financial sustainability. For a company, that's mainly interpreted as staying in business. And I think this year's been a reminder that even the biggest, most well-established companies can't ever take that for granted. Okay, so where is diet in the list of industry's sustainability priorities? Well, it's generally recognised as a very important component of the equation, but it tends to be seen as quite difficult to deal with. It's perceived as complex, and what industry, when it's communicating with consumers, really likes is to give good, clear, simple messages. The last thing it wants to do is to have to backtrack on something that it said a year or two down the line. So the sustainability priorities for most companies currently would lie in terms of waste reduction and improving resource efficiency. However, plenty of companies are ready, willing, and are engaging on the topic of diets and thinking ahead into the future. So my final question, what role can and will industry play in the drive for sustainable diets? Well, 2 things that it's currently doing that I think we can expect to see more of. First of all, that engagement and helping to build the knowledge on this topic. And hopefully some of the companies that have really great data can be induced to share some of that in a good, anonymous way. Secondly, companies will continue working on the sustainability of their own products in the sort of ways that Mark was talking about, and through their supply chains with their suppliers. Now, in future, as we build our understanding, then I think companies are ready and willing to inform the public so they can make sustainable choices in the way that companies seek to do at the moment about fish or about paper, for instance, but they do want to give clear, simple messages. And I think that many companies are ready and waiting to inspire people through marketing, through the development of ranges. Now, moving on to some more contentious areas, how about the price mechanism? How about incentivizing people through price to make sustainable choices? Well, here there are some definite barriers because companies definitely cannot sit in a room together and fix the price of products, however well-meaning their intentions might be. That would flagrantly contravene competition law. It's a non-starter. And also, no individual company can buck the market for very long by setting prices that are way out of kilter from their competitors, because you just drive your customers to somebody else, and that's just self-defeating. However, what we should definitely see is sustainable products getting their fair share, at least their fair share, when it comes to promotions. So I think all businesses should be observed in how to account on that score. And some companies are engaging in discussions as to how we can put a market value on natural capital. So internalizing some of the externalities that was raised earlier. And that would be a huge prize if we can find ways to do that. And then finally, choice editing. So withdrawing certain products from sale. Now, some of this does go on. We've seen certain endangered fish species, for example, being taken off from sale. But again, it's important here that companies take their customers with them on this. Otherwise, again, you're just driving your customers into your competitors. Now, in theory, from our research, shoppers are more receptive to choice editing on ethical grounds than they are on healthy eating grounds. So they don't like the nanny knows best when it comes to health, but they're more prepared to consider it on ethics. I have to say, though, when that has been put to the test by fish companies who've been moving away from endangered species, they have found that a healthy eating message has worked better for them during the transition than a sustainability message. So the evidence is a little bit mixed. And I've got one final point for the campaigners in the room here seeking to influence companies. Do remember that the carrot can be just as powerful as the stick. Some real endorsement from people like you can be incredibly valuable for companies, both for marketing purposes and for staff motivation purposes. So that's my final question. Thank you, Jon Woolven. Back to the studio.